Stephen Curry finds his late grandfather's letter predicting his NBA future, but he reads it too late. Before we get into the story, comment below where in the world you are watching from today, and if you like this story, don't forget to subscribe. Stephen Curry stood in the doorway of the attic, the old wooden ladder creaking under his sneakers. Dust floated through the sunlight, slicing into the dim space, and somewhere in the far corner, a box caught his eye. It was strange being back in his childhood home, stranger still to be here for a funeral. Grandpa Eli was gone. The man who always sat quietly on the porch, watching Steph dribble until dark, saying little but somehow saying everything that mattered, had passed without much warning. Family members moved below, packing away dishes and arguing over who would keep what. Steph wasn't interested. He climbed fully into the attic, coughing against the stale air, and began pushing aside old furniture. His hands were rough from a season full of criticism and defeats, but they moved carefully over the remnants of a life once lived. A few broken picture frames, some yellowed newspapers, and then he saw it. An old wooden box, tucked behind a stack of cracked vinyl records. His name was carved into the top, Stephen. No one else's. Just his. He hesitated. Something about it felt heavy, like opening it would change more than just the day. His fingers brushed the cold metal lock. It was still sealed tight. His mother had said something earlier, in passing, her voice catching with emotion she quickly buried. Your grandfather always said he left something important for you. When the time was right. But what did that mean? And was now really the right time? Steph wasn't sure. After all, he wasn't exactly riding high these days. His last few games had been rough. The media had started the whispers again. Maybe he was done. Maybe the league had figured him out. Maybe the kid from Davidson was finally showing he was human. He backed away from the box and sat down on an old trunk. His chest felt tight. There had been a time when he played for joy, for nothing but the feeling of the ball rolling off his fingertips. Somewhere along the way, it had gotten twisted into expectations, contracts, and noise. Too much noise. Hours passed. He heard the family leave, the door slam, the silence settle over the house like a thick blanket. Still, he stayed there, staring at the box, feeling like a coward for not opening it. His phone buzzed. Another headline. Another critic picking apart his last game. His thumb hovered over the screen before he shut it off and shoved it into his jacket pocket. He wiped his hands on his jeans, stood up, and grabbed the box. It was heavier than it looked. He carried it down from the attic, setting it carefully in the middle of his old bedroom floor. The room still smelled faintly of sweat, sneakers, and faded posters peeling off the walls. Steph paced. 5 steps one way, 5 steps back. He could practically hear Grandpa Eli's voice in his head, slow and steady, ain't no use waiting when you already know you need to act. Finally, frustration boiled over. He grabbed a hammer from the garage, came back up, and smashed the lock. It popped open with a sharp snap. The lid creaked as he lifted it. Inside was a neatly folded letter, brittle with age, and a photograph. The picture was of a much younger Steph, maybe 9 or 10 years old, holding a basketball half his size, grinning up at the camera with pure, uncomplicated hope. Grandpa Eli's withered hand rested on his shoulder in the frame, a silent shield against the world. Steph sat down hard, legs giving out under him, and unfolded the letter. The handwriting was shaky but sure. Stephen. One day, they will doubt you. They will say you're too small, too weak, too different. They won't see what I see. They won't see what you are. But you'll know. Deep down, you'll know you were made for something bigger. You'll fall. You'll fail. You'll want to quit. When you do, remember, that's when real strength is born. Steph blinked hard, his throat tightening. He kept reading. I bet this house that you would never give up. You never knew, but when you were 13, I mortgaged every brick and board to pay for you to go to training camp. They said it was foolish. They said it was a waste. They didn't know you like I did. No matter what happens, you owe nobody anything but the truth of who you are. The letter ended without any flowery goodbye. Just Grandpa Eli's name, written firm like a signature on destiny itself. Steph put the letter down and just sat there. The reality of what his grandfather had done crushed him in a way no loss ever had. Every step he had taken, every shot he made, every chant of MVP from roaring crowds, it had all been built on sacrifices he never even saw. The night crept in, unnoticed. Steph stayed in the room as darkness wrapped around the house. He didn't turn on a light. Didn't check his phone. Didn't answer the dozens of calls from teammates, friends, coaches. He couldn't. The guilt gnawed at him. For years, he had believed in a story where he alone had carried himself to greatness. Now he knew that while he was dreaming, someone else had been betting everything they had on him. Steph finally stood, letter trembling in his hand, and crossed to the window. The backyard basketball hoop still stood there, weathered and bent, the net long gone. It was the first hoop he ever scored on. The first place he learned how to believe in himself. And now he realized he hadn't been alone even then. Steph pressed his forehead to the glass and closed his eyes. He wished he had opened the box sooner. Wished he could have told Grandpa Eli thank you. Wished he could have told him he was right. But the attic had waited until now. Until a moment when Steph needed something more than just skills or fame. He needed to remember who he was before the world told him who he should be. Tomorrow he would have to face the team again. Face the media. Face the playoff pressure. But tonight, in the quiet of an old house filled with dust and memories, Steph Curry made a promise to the man who believed in him first. He would find a way to play the right way again. No matter how hard it got. Steph barely slept. By morning, the house was colder, emptier. The letter sat on the nightstand, weighted like an invisible hand on his shoulder. He didn't touch it again. He didn't need to. The words were already burned into his memory. At breakfast, his mom pushed a plate of eggs toward him without speaking. She glanced at the letter once, then at him, then went back to drinking her coffee. Steph ate a few bites mechanically, his stomach twisted in knots. "You opened it," she said quietly. He nodded. "He always knew you would. He told me not to push you. Said you'd find it when you needed it most." Steph looked up, suddenly angry. "I needed it a long time ago." His mom gave a small, sad smile. "You needed it now more than ever. Trust him." Trust. That word hit different now. He trusted coaches, trainers, brands, critics. He trusted everyone but the man who never once asked for credit. After breakfast, he threw a duffel bag into the back of his car and drove straight to the Warriors' practice facility. He wasn't scheduled to show up yet, but he didn't care. He needed the court like a man crawling toward water. The gym was empty when he arrived. Echoes followed him as he dribbled across the hardwood, sneakers squeaking. No cameras. No reporters. Just the sound of the ball rising and falling, a steady heartbeat. He started shooting. Free throws. Three-pointers. Runners off the glass. He moved through drills the way he had when he was a teenager, without thinking about percentages, without imagining SportsCenter highlights. Just the work, pure and simple. After an hour, his coach, Steve Kerr, wandered in, coffee in hand. He leaned against the wall, watching quietly. Steph missed a shot, grabbed the rebound, reset. "You're early," Kerr said. Steph shrugged. Felt like working. Kerr studied him for a moment. "You okay?" Steph hesitated. Part of him wanted to unload everything. The funeral. The attic. The letter. The crushing weight of it all. But another part of him, the part his grandfather had shaped, knew some things didn't need explaining. "I'm good," Steph said. "I just needed to remember why I started." Kerr nodded slowly, like he understood more than Steph had said. He walked over, set down his coffee, and tossed Steph a fresh ball. "Then let's get back to it," Kerr said. "No crowds. No noise. Just ball. They worked for hours. Shooting drills, ball handling, footwork. Kerr didn't go easy on him. He called out missed rotations, lazy passes, sloppy footwork. But there was no malice, no frustration. Just a quiet, stubborn belief that Steph could be better. It wasn't until the sun started slanting low through the gym windows that Kerr finally said, "We got a big one coming." "You ready?" Steph wiped sweat off his forehead and smiled, the first real smile he'd felt in days. "I'm ready." That night, the Warriors boarded the team plane. They were headed into a Game 6 elimination against a younger, hungrier team. Most analysts had already counted them out. Talk shows debated if the dynasty was dead. Headlines framed it as the end of an era. Steph sat by the window, noise-canceling headphones on, eyes closed. But he wasn't thinking about the critics. He wasn't even thinking about the game. He was thinking about the backyard hoop. About Grandpa Eli's hand on his shoulder. About the way belief felt when it was real, not shouted by fans, not measured in MVP trophies, but stitched quietly into your bones by someone who loved you. Landing in enemy territory, the team headed to the hotel. Fans jeered from the airport fences. The team pretended not to notice, but Steph caught the tight set of Draymond's jaw, the way Clay's laughter was a little too loud. Everyone felt the pressure. They just showed it differently. In his room, Steph pulled the letter from his bag. He hadn't meant to bring it, but somehow it ended up tucked between his sneakers and jerseys. He unfolded it, not to reread the words, but to feel the presence behind them. He left it on the nightstand and went to sleep early. Tomorrow wasn't about legacy. It wasn't about silencing critics. It was about honoring a man who had sacrificed everything, believing Stephen could be something more. Game day arrived fast. Steph dressed in silence, headphones over his ears again, zoning out the noise. The bus ride to the arena was tense. Nobody said much. In the locker room, Kerr gave a short speech. "Nobody outside this room believes in us," he said. "Good. We don't need them." Steph wasn't nervous. He wasn't angry. For the first time in a long time, he was just focused. The arena roared as the teams came out for warm-ups. Fans waved signs mocking him. Some wore shirts saying Curry's cooked. Camera flashes burst like fireworks. He didn't care. He felt light. The game tipped off fast and brutal. The other team came at them hard, young legs flying, bodies crashing. Every possession was a war. Every point was earned with blood and grit. Steph started slow. His first few shots rimmed out. The crowd howled with every miss. He glanced up once and saw an entire section taunting him, waving goodbye signs. He tuned it out. Midway through the second quarter, down by 12, something clicked. On a broken play, Steph dove for a loose ball, slammed hard onto the floor, and came up with it. He fired a pass to a cutting teammate, who finished with a dunk. The bench erupted. It wasn't a three. It wasn't flashy. It was grit. Steph started attacking differently. Driving. Kicking. Defending with every ounce he had. He still missed some shots, but he kept moving, kept trusting. By halftime, the Warriors had clawed back within 5. In the locker room, nobody spoke much. They didn't need speeches now. They could feel the shift. Steph sat with a towel over his head, breathing steady. He wasn't thinking about stats. He wasn't thinking about the score. He was thinking about playing the right way. When the third quarter started, he unleashed. Not just with threes, though he hit a few. It was in the energy, the unselfish passes, the fights for rebounds, the charges he took. The Warriors fed off it. Every little moment built into something bigger. By the start of the fourth, the game was tied. The crowd that had mocked him fell into nervous murmurs. But Steph didn't hear them. He wasn't playing for them. And deep down, he knew, win or lose, he was already keeping the real promise he made in that dusty attic. The fourth quarter felt like a fistfight without gloves. Every possession was a battle, and every whistle sounded like a war drum. Steph's body ached from hits he didn't bother complaining about. He didn't need sympathy. He needed the ball, the moment, the chance to answer everything that had been thrown at him. The score swung back and forth. The young team was relentless, feeding off the energy of their crowd. Every time the Warriors pulled ahead, a quick three-pointer or a turnover erased it. Nobody was giving anything away tonight. Steph caught the ball off a screen, rose for a three, and felt it leave his fingers clean. The net snapped, the Warriors bench jumped up, but Steph didn't celebrate. He backpedaled, eyes scanning for the next assignment. There was no breathing room. No comfort. The game clock ticked under 2 minutes. Tie game. Kerr called a timeout. The team huddled, breathing hard, jerseys soaked through. Kerr didn't bother with a complicated play. Just get the ball to Steph, trust him to make the right decision. As the ref handed the ball back in, Steph felt the weight of everything, the letter, the attic, the sacrifices, press into his chest. But instead of crushing him, it lifted him. He moved like he was back in the backyard, like he was still the kid who believed he could fly if he just shot enough. He drove past his man, the defense collapsed, and instead of forcing a shot, he kicked the ball out to Clay on the wing. Wide open. Perfect form. Swish. The Warriors up by 3. The crowd turned vicious. Booing, screaming, stomping. Steph barely heard it. The next defensive stand was brutal. The young team attacked the rim, bodies crashing together. The ref swallowed the whistle. A layup fell in. 1-point game. 30 seconds left. No timeouts. Steph brought the ball up slowly, motioning for space. The arena leaned in, thousands of people holding their breath. He dribbled at the top of the key, rocked his man with a hesitation, crossed over, pulled up from deep. The ball arced high, beautiful, perfect, until it clanged off the back iron. The rebound bounced loose. A mad scramble followed. Arms, bodies, diving everywhere. Steph saw it happening almost in slow motion. One of their rookies scooped it up and took off in transition. A clean look at a fast break layup. Steph sprinted after him, legs burning. He timed his last step, leapt, and swatted the ball off the backboard just as it kissed the glass. A clean block. The arena erupted in chaos. The ball ricocheted right to Draymond, who secured it and threw it back to Steph. Fouled immediately. Steph walked to the free throw line, breathing hard. 2 shots. Make both, and it was a 3-point lead with seconds left. Miss, and he gave them a chance to steal it. The first shot rattled in. The second, pure swish. Timeout. The Warriors huddled again, defense only now. Steph locked eyes with his teammates. No fear. Just trust. The young team set up a final play, trying to get a look at the 3-point line. Screens, confusion, movement. Steph fought through a pick, switched onto the shooter, got a hand up. The shot went up. The buzzer sounded. The ball hit the rim, bounced, and fell out. Game over. Warriors win. The bench stormed the court, mobbing Steph, pulling him into a sea of bodies and yells and fists pumping the air. He smiled, exhaustion and adrenaline crashing together. But deep inside, past the noise, he felt something else, something cleaner. He hadn't saved the game with a logo 3. He hadn't outshone everybody with a highlight. He had trusted. Passed. Defended. Worked. The way Grandpa Eli would have wanted. Later, after the press conferences and the handshakes and the endless chatter, Steph sat alone by his locker. The championship wasn't won yet. There was still more ahead. But this game had been a war he had to win first, against the doubt, the noise, the expectations. Clay dropped into the seat beside him, handing him a water. "You played different tonight," Clay said. Steph twisted the cap off. "Different good or different bad?" Clay grinned. Different, right? Steph bumped his fist against Clay's. No more needed to be said. On the bus back to the hotel, the team laughed and joked, a world away from the tense silence of the day before. Steph sat by the window again, staring out at the city lights blurring past. He pulled the letter out of his pocket. The edges were worn now. He'd read it so many times he could almost recite it. But something nagged at him. One line stood out now, clearer than ever. When you are broken, that's when you'll find your real strength. He wasn't broken anymore. He wasn't chasing legacy or approval. But he felt like something was missing. Like the letter wasn't the end of the story. He turned it over, steadied the paper. A corner was thicker. Taped. Steph peeled back the old tape carefully. Underneath, folded flat against the back of the letter, was another page. His stomach flipped. He unfolded it slowly. This second page wasn't a prediction. It wasn't about basketball at all. It was a final message. Stephen, if you're reading this, then you've already won the part that matters. I didn't bet the house on your talent. I bet it on your heart. You were never meant to play their game. You were meant to change it. Don't lose yourself trying to prove them wrong. Stay true. Stay joyful. Stay you. Love always. Grandpa Eli. Steph sat there, the bus bumping over a pothole, the team's chatter fading into the background. He smiled through the tears he didn't bother hiding. Tomorrow would come. The battles would come. But for tonight, he finally understood what he'd been chasing all along. And he knew exactly where he was headed next. The next morning, Steph was the first one awake. Before sunrise even touched the city, he was up, packing his gym bag. He didn't wake anyone. He didn't post a story, didn't update social media, didn't text a soul. Some things were meant to be done quietly. The team had the day off, a rare gift between playoff wars. But Steph didn't care about rest days. He found an old gym a few blocks from the hotel, the kind of place that still smelled like leather, sweat, and wood polish. The manager unlocked the doors early just for him, no fanfare, just a nod of respect. Steph walked in, set his bag down, and stood for a moment at half court. The floor wasn't perfect. There were scuffs, dead spots, chipped paint on the three-point line. But it was beautiful because it had been used, because people had dreamed here and fallen here and gotten back up. He pulled out a ball and started to move. It wasn't about flashy handles or logo threes. It was basics. One dribble pull-ups. Free throws. Left-hand layups. Right-hand layups. Bank shots. The kind of work that never made headlines but built everything that did. Sweat poured down his back. His legs burned. His arms ached. He didn't stop. He remembered Grandpa Eli's voice in his head, calm and steady. You don't build greatness by looking for shortcuts. You build it by loving the work no one sees. He stayed for hours, long past when the sun finally rose and light poured through cracked windows. When he finally left, he didn't feel tired. He felt clean. Ready. The next 2 games flew by. The Warriors came out with a different energy. Tighter. Hungrier. Unbreakable. Steph wasn't just leading with shots. He was leading with heart. Diving for loose balls, setting screens, making the extra pass even when the cameras weren't watching. In Game 7, with everything on the line, he didn't force heroics. He trusted his team. When the defense swarmed him, he kicked to open shooters. When the momentum swung, he clapped the bench into life, anchoring them with unshakable belief. Every possession was a prayer answered in sweat. And when the final buzzer sounded, the Warriors stood tall. Victorious. No confetti yet. No trophy yet. But they survived the storm when almost everyone had counted them out. In the post-game press conference, someone asked Steph how he found the fire again. He smiled, easy and sure. I just remembered why I started, he said. The reporters nodded, scribbling in notebooks, but they didn't really get it. How could they? The real answer wasn't meant for sound bites. It was meant for Grandpa Eli. For the attic. For the backyard hoop under the stars. Back at the hotel, the team threw a small celebration. Music, food, laughter bouncing off the walls. Someone ordered way too many pizzas. Someone else started a makeshift dance battle. Steph smiled and joked with them, but part of him stayed quiet inside. There was one more thing he needed to do. Late that night, he slipped out of the party, letter tucked into his jacket. He found an Uber and gave the driver a strange address, a place halfway between nowhere and memory. The car pulled up in front of an abandoned lot. Broken fences. Weeds. A cracked sidewalk leading to what was once a proud house. His grandfather's house. Sold years ago, long after Grandpa Eli made the decision to risk it for him. Now it stood hollow, nothing but skeleton wood and ghosts. Steph walked through the lot carefully. Found the old patch of backyard where the hoop used to stand. The pole was gone, but the cement square was still there, stubborn and cracked but real. He knelt down, pressed the letter against the concrete, and whispered, "We made it, Grandpa. Your way. The right way." He sat there for a long time. Thinking. Feeling. Thinking. After a while, he stood up, wiped the dust from his hands, and pulled out a Sharpie from his pocket. On the cement, he wrote 3 words. Love the work. He stood up, staring at it for a moment longer. Then he walked back to the street, feeling lighter than he had in months. The next day, he rejoined the team as they prepared for the finals. It wasn't easy. The other team was a monster, younger, faster, deeper. Analysts gave the Warriors no chance. Social media called them old, past their prime, lucky to have made it this far. Steph didn't argue. He didn't post motivational videos or clap back at haters. He just worked. Practice after practice. Meeting after meeting. He pulled rookies aside, encouraged veterans, set the tone without shouting. The finals began with a brutal game 1 loss. They were outpaced, outshot, outhustled. In the locker room afterward, the mood was grim. Steph stood up, no notes, no speech written. "I don't care what they say out there," he said, voice steady. "We know who we are. We play our game. Our way. Every possession. Every pass. Every shot." He looked every man in the eye, daring them to believe it too. "Nobody's giving us anything," Steph said. "And that's fine. We're not here to be handed a crown. We're here to take it." Silence. Then Draymond clapped his hands once, sharp as a starter pistol. "Let's take it, then," he growled. The room erupted. The next games turned into a battle of wills. Steph led the way, but not by taking every shot. He took the right ones. Passed when it mattered. Dug in on defense. Hustled after every 50-50 ball like it was life or death. He still hit his threes, but they weren't the focus. They were the reward. Reporters started noticing. "Curry's playing different," they said. "Smarter. Tougher. Freer." By Game 5, the series was tied. Steph stood on the court before tip-off, bouncing lightly on his toes, feeling the weight of the moment settle around him. And he wasn't afraid. He was home. Right where Grandpa Eli had always known he would be. Game 5 wasn't just another game. It felt heavier, sharper. Every fan in the arena could feel it. Steph could feel it too, deep in his bones. There was something in the air, not fear, not pressure, but opportunity. From the opening tip, it was a slugfest. Bodies crashed. Every bucket was earned. Every mistake punished. The opposing team played like they smelled blood. They were younger, faster, hungrier. They wanted to end the Warriors right there, right now. Steph wasn't flashy. He was ruthless. Every cut he made was sharp. Every pass found the open man. He didn't force anything, didn't try to win it alone. He trusted the work, trusted his teammates, trusted the same instincts that Grandpa Eli had taught him to trust. By halftime, the Warriors led by 3. The locker room was a mix of adrenaline and exhaustion. Players icing knees, coaches sketching plays, trainers barking about hydration. In the middle of it, Steph sat quietly, the letter tucked inside his warm-up jacket. He didn't need to read it again. It lived in him now. Kerr walked by, clapped a hand on his shoulder. "Keep going," he said simply. Steph nodded. Third quarter opened rough. A few bad turnovers, missed shots, momentum slipping away. The crowd roared, the other team feeding off it. Steph missed a corner 3 badly. Airball. The whole arena howled. But he didn't hang his head. He sprinted back, picked up the defensive assignment, fought through a screen, and forced a bad shot at the rim. Small play. No highlight reel. But it mattered. The fourth quarter arrived, and it felt like a mountain standing between him and everything he had worked for. With 5 minutes left, the Warriors trailed by 7. Timeout. Huddled on the sideline, Kerr didn't draw up a fancy play. He just looked at Steph. "You ready?" Steph didn't answer. He just nodded. Out of the timeout, Steph took over, but not the way people expected. He attacked the rim, forced help defenders to crash, then kicked to open shooters. Assist. Layup. Three-pointer. Stop. The Warriors clawed back. Down by 2. 60 seconds left. Steph dribbled at the top of the key, defender tight on him. Clock ticking down. He didn't panic. Didn't rush. He drove hard, then pulled back. Defender stumbled. Steph rose, smooth as breathing, and let it fly. Net. Warriors by 1. The crowd exploded, half in awe, half in rage. But Steph didn't celebrate. He pointed at his chest, then pointed upward. A quiet tribute. There were still seconds left. Still work to do. The young team came down, desperate. They attacked, but Klay rotated perfectly, forcing a wild shot. Draymond grabbed the rebound, got it to Steph, who was immediately fouled. 15 seconds. 2 free throws. He stepped to the line, ball in hand, heartbeat steady. First shot. Swish. 2-point lead. Second shot. Deep breath. Release. Swish. 3-point lead. Timeout. The Warriors huddled up one last time. No threes, Kerr barked. Switch everything. Stay smart. Steph caught Draymond's eye, and they nodded. The old Warriors, battered but not broken. Out of the timeout, the young team ran a clever play, a series of screens trying to free up their best shooter. Steph fought through the maze, heart pounding. The shooter caught it on the wing, rose for the tying 3. Steph leapt, arm outstretched. The ball arced high, spinning in slow motion. And missed. Wide right. The rebound tipped once, twice, and fell into Klay's hands. Buzzer. Game over. The Warriors bench stormed the floor. Coaches, players, staff, everyone rushing to embrace, to scream, to celebrate. It wasn't a championship yet, but it was a finals berth. It was survival. It was vindication. Steph let himself be pulled into the hugs, the noise, the chaos. But later, when the interviews were done, the fans had cleared, and the arena lights dimmed, he found himself standing alone at center court. He pulled the letter from his jacket one last time. He unfolded it carefully, smoothing the creases with his fingertips. Stay true. Stay joyful. Stay you. Steph smiled. He knelt down and pressed the letter flat against the Warriors logo at half court. He didn't leave it there, didn't make a show. He just closed his eyes for a moment and let the gratitude wash over him. Everything he was, everything he had fought for, everything he had become, it started with a belief no one else had seen. Except one man. Grandpa Eli hadn't lived to see this moment. But somehow, Steph knew he was here anyway, standing just beyond the lights, grinning that quiet grin, nodding once, proud. He picked up the letter, tucked it back safely, and headed toward the tunnel. The team was waiting. Another battle ahead. Another shot at the ultimate prize. But no matter what happened next, Steph had already won the part that mattered most. Not because of trophies. Not because of headlines. Because he had found his way back to himself. Because he had honored the promise. Because he had stayed true. As he disappeared into the tunnel, he could still hear the echoes of the game, the sound of a fight well fought, a dream well earned. And somewhere, in the silence beyond the roar, he could almost hear his grandfather's voice. "Good work, kid. Now go love the next one." Steph smiled, tightened his grip on the letter, and walked forward into whatever came next, fearless, free, and finally whole.